Thank y'all for taking on this ride with me. Yeah. You know what? Here go 2 more for y'all. Yeah.
What's going on, everybody? Back like we never left, and honestly, it's all because of you guys. Starting out when I made that first video, I never actually intended on making a part 2, even when I had some of my friends telling me that I should. With the overwhelming support that you all have given part 1, and the many requests I've received to do so, here we are. So that just goes to show, if you have a cool idea for a video, let me know in the comments because it just might become a thing. And I highly recommend you go watch part 1 if you haven't yet. It sets the tone for this video and has some added context to cancellations in the manga industry. But thanks guys. And without further ado, here are more canceled Shonen Jump manga you never heard of. The first series we're going to be taking a look at here is one that was actually requested in the comments section of part 1. See, I listened to you guys. We're talking about none other than Natsuki Hokami's Hellwardenhiguma. Readers were introduced to the series back in 2018, making it newer than any of the manga discussed in the previous video. If there's anything that I've learned over the years from being a fan of not only Jump but Shonen in general, is that they love manga about killing demons. And Hellwardenhiguma is no exception. I mean, it's just everywhere. It's like every time I turn around there's a new one being published, like damn, switch it up. But as long as they're good, you won't really see me complaining. The story opens on a bus ride one night where we focus on a drunk man harassing a young boy for a seat. A girl who is a bystander takes note of the situation and starts to feel bad for the boy. The boy wakes up and kindly offers a seat to the drunk guy and apologizes for dozing off. Not able to stand the way he's being treated, the girl defends the boy, demanding that the man give him his seat back. After grabbing him, the boy begins to defuse the situation and mentions that his stop is coming up. As he gets off the bus, the girl feels like her arm is being pulled by something in the boy's direction, but when she looks at her wrist, there isn't anything there. After getting off the bus and further discussing the events of what just happened, the boy reveals that he knows that she stole the man's wallet. The pair walk towards a mysterious temple, and he adds that there's only one reason for people to get off at this stop, and that is to receive an exorcism. It is here that the boy reveals himself to be the grandson of the head priest, Higuma Kagerite. As they make their way into the temple, Higuma grabs a wallet and her bag seemingly with telekinesis, as the girl reveals her name to be Ayaha Kuramine. Once in the temple, the pair begin discussing that Ayaha has been dealing with 2 problems. The first of which she states that for the past several months she has been unconsciously stealing various items wherever she goes, and that she is unaware of the cause behind this. After hearing her situation, Higuma asks her to stand up. He reaches his transformed hand through her head, pulling out a Sudama, a low-level spirit sentenced to less than 20 years in hell, that when possessed causes the host to commit various crimes regardless of their intent. Higuma unleashes an additional group of hands orbiting around him called Zaiju. As of now, he has 11 of them, each wielding various weapons and abilities. Higuma explains to Ayaha that the spirit who possessed her is likely one who escaped from hell. Around 400 years ago, an army of spirits managed to escape from hell, now existing amongst the world of the living, possessing people to commit acts of evil. Higuma's clan has been tasked with capturing and returning the spirits from which they came, and have maintained this mission for generations. Humans are much more vulnerable to possession if they are exhausted or undergoing mental or emotional stress. After helping out Ayaha, Higuma thanks her for standing up for him on the bus and gives her a hell cauldron to teleport her back home. Once returning home, before she can even gather her bearings, her bedroom door is opened. Her brother steps in with a threatening aura, berating her for her lateness and breaking his rules. Afraid, Ayaha steps away from the door, but her brother grabs her by the neck and threatens to kill her if she disobeys him again. He sends her downstairs to eat with her parents, who he has delivered similar punishment to as well. This is revealed to be the second of Ayaha's problems that she mentioned. A few months back, while studying for entrance exams, her brother suddenly became extremely strict and violent, completely unlike his normal personality. Finally, Ayaha asks her brother if he's a dead spirit, causing him to finally reveal himself as one. The spirit had a feeling that Ayaha was behaving differently, as he couldn't sense her walking into the house, as well as noticing that the Sudama that he placed inside her was missing. He begins attacking her with a snake tongue-like ability, as she tries to call Higuma, but he destroys her phone. At the end of the line, Ayaha yells at the demon to leave her brother's body as she is about to be finished, but luckily she is saved by Higuma at the last minute. Higuma decided to check up on Ayaha after feeling suspicions that a higher ranked demon was the one truly behind her problems. Low ranking demons like Sudamas rarely ever act alone, and his hunch was correct in that the demon possessing her brother is indeed a fugitive spirit, but is much more powerful than a Sudama. The demon is revealed to be Bokushu of the Black Courts, a notorious demon who was sentenced to 117 years in hell. Higuma and Bokushu begin to fight, as he summons his Zaiju hand number 4, which consists of dual-wielded blades. Bokushu mentions that these hands seem familiar to him. Higuma starts fighting back, but breaks his blades and isn't really taking the fight seriously. He asks Ayaha who it is that she wants to be saved, as a method of testing her resolve. She proclaims that she hates seeing her brother being taken advantage of like this, and that she wants Higuma to save him. Hearing this, Higuma decides to take all of Ayaha's pain and anguish into his own hands, transforming into a Hell Warden. The aura emitted from this transformation is so powerful that it caught the wind of a mysterious figure known as Great King Enma, who states that Higuma will be receiving a new Zaiju soon. After transforming, Higuma attacks Bokushu again with his Zaiju number 4, but this time around it's more than powerful enough to cut through his cords. Higuma states that it's only when he transforms that his Zaiju reach their full power. Higuma finishes Bokushu off by exercising him with Zaiju number 1, cutting off his hands and sending him back to hell, saving Ayaha's brother. So, Hell Warden Higuma. If I'm being honest, it's pretty average. The premise, the characters, just kind of all of it. Not to say that it's bad though, it just isn't great either, and is certainly the weakest of the series covered in this video. As the story goes on and we learn of the true reason behind the Warden's dedication to their role, the series definitely started to have my eyes glued for a bit. Finding out that the Wardens were forced to fight demons unless they'd be sentenced to hell themselves was a great plot twist, and the addition of a clan being terrorized by a demonic entity reminded me a bit of Shaman King, but the story obviously didn't last too long after this to delve any deeper. Interestingly enough though, Higuma is one of the few cancelled series to actually be granted some semblance of a true ending, going as far as receiving an epilogue published in Jump Plus 2 months after its cancellation. I will say that above all, the action in the series is what stood out to me the most. The idea that demons are insanely powerful, possessing the strongest supernatural abilities, while the Wardens use their various Zaiju, made for some pretty cool to read fights and overall kinda gave me Demon Slayer vibes. All in all, if you've read any demon fighting manga ever, you've likely read Hell Warden Higuma. I think that if given time, it could have done more to stand out from the rest, but those initial chapters don't do a great job of hooking you in. Be sure to check it out, as well as any additional works from Hokami. The next series we're going to be taking a look at is what I feel like to be the least recognized out of the three, and that's ZIPMAN. Published in 2019 by Yusaku Shibata, ZIPMAN is effectively the most recent series that we've discussed so far, being cancelled only a few years ago. Also, fun fact, Shibata actually worked as an assistant under both Ichiro Oda and Kohei Horikoshi, the respective creators behind One Piece and My Hero Academia. With legendary experience like that, I was super excited to see what Shibata would bring to the table with his own series. Admittedly, I was never a huge fan of mecha series. I mean, I love me some Gurren Lagann, but aside from that, I've never bothered to delve into any of the Gundams or anything like that. But what drove me to check out ZIPMAN was that it's not just a mecha series, it's a mech series and a superhero series at the same time. Our story begins in the middle of a funeral of all places, with what appears to be our main character mourning his greatest rival, his brother. Diving into a flashback to learn what led to this point, we're formally introduced to our MC, 17-year-old Kaname Tatara, who wants nothing more than to audition to become the new Jackman, a masked hero with his own television series. As convincing as he was during tryouts, displaying feats of strength and acrobatics beyond that of a normal human, it was decided that he didn't make the cut, specifically that he just didn't have that Jackman feel. On his way out, the judges wonder if he's related to that Tatara. It is here that we learn it's been a week since the passing of Koshiro Tatara, world-renowned engineer and Kaname's younger brother. Koshiro was a prodigy who became a doctor at the age of 12 and founded his own robotics company at the age of 15, developing groundbreaking inventions such as mind-controlled wheelchairs, exosuits, and autonomous drones. It was stated that Koshiro was so smart that his passing will set society back 50 years technologically. Despite how different the two brothers are, as twins they naturally grew up living very similar lives, most notably having a shared admiration for Jackman. While at the park one day, Kaname was defending Koshiro from a group of bullies, but wasn't putting up much of a fight. They ended up both being saved by a young girl named China, who's also a fan of Jackman. The pair instantly fell in love with her, and it was at this point in their lives that their paths diverged. Kaname made a point to focus on strength, dominating every single sport or physical activity that he could participate in, while Koshiro studied to become even smarter. Flash forward to the present, Chino watches Kaname's performance as a monster in the Tokyo Tower Super Show, stating that he reminds her of the previous Jackman. The two reminisce on the competitions the brothers would have in the past to make Chino smile, and Kaname reflects at the fact that Koshiro would always win. The memories of Koshiro upset Chino, and in an attempt to make her smile, Kaname announces that he auditioned for Jackman, but unfortunately his reveal is overshadowed by a tribute to Koshiro on TV that causes her to smile instead. Suddenly, the television switches to a breaking story of an ongoing investigation at Steel X, Koshiro's robotics company. Kaname then receives a cryptic message telling him to meet them at Steel X, and the text is coming from the phone of none other than Koshiro. He immediately starts to think this must be some sort of prank, but Koshiro is the only one who ever called him Devil Gorilla. Before he could even make his way there, Kaname and China start to feel massive shocks reminiscent of earthquakes. As they look out the window, they see the city in chaos and what looks to be a giant mechanical foot crashing down on the street. A giant robot is attacking Japan. Strong enough to shrug off 10-ton beams like they're pebbles, the robot gradually makes its way to Tokyo Tower. Evacuating through the stairs, China stops because her legs start to give out, and Kaname offers to carry her. But before he can get to her, the stairs proceed to be blown up by a flying semi-truck, separating the two. China runs back to take the elevator as Kaname heads down the stairs and stands face to face with a giant robot who's finally arrived at Tokyo Tower. Which is weird, because unless the robot decided to just start moving faster, it literally took the two of them 10 minutes to get halfway down a set of stairs. Anyway, the robot prepares to destroy the tower, and while appearing hopeless, Kaname finds the resolve to counter the robot with an attack of his own, but is quickly interrupted by a truck with his brother's voice being heard coming out of it. The two brothers converse for a bit, before Kaname is told to put on what quite frankly looks like a sci-fi furry suit. Kaname pulls the zipper, wink wink, and dons the suit. It begins to grow and gains immense power to be able to punch the robot away from the tower. Declaring himself as Jackman, Kaname finishes the robot off with a 100,000 horsepower jack rocket, the same special move that Jackman used. After the robot is defeated, Kaname naturally can't wait to see his brother again, but it is then revealed that his brother Koshiro has actually become the suit. And boom, chapter ends. What a cliffhanger. Now after reading these 17 chapters, I can honestly consider myself a huge fan of ZIPMAN. While the story isn't the most captivating thing I've ever read, it does everything I feel like a shonen needs to do to keep me interested, and also has some really cool subversions of expectations, such as Koshiro being revealed to be the suit, and the mysteries like why it happened in the first place. Character-wise, Kaname is very much so your average shonen protagonist, boasting a brash attitude and insane levels of perseverance. He isn't really doing anything new, but just because it isn't new doesn't mean it isn't enjoyable. The relationship between Kaname and Koshiro reminded me very closely of Rin and Yukio from Blue Exorcist, if you've ever seen it, with the dynamic of the rambunctious brother with demon-like qualities, always being overshadowed by the smarter, more calculated brother. But what really stood out to me the most in ZIPMAN were by far the mechs. I mean, it's just everything from the way they're introduced, the way they're designed, all the way to how they fight. As I mentioned earlier, I don't venture into mech series very often, so my frame of reference is very small, but this series has some of the coolest designs I've ever seen, ranging from dinosaurs, giant babies, Optimus Prime, and Sun Wukong. There's a huge amount of diversity amongst the mechs that I feel like isn't apparent in a lot of series. Many of the mechs reminded me of popular robot series such as Mega Man, Ultraman, Transformers, and even a little Power Rangers, so there's a little something for every fan base. And on the topic of Mega Man, all of the fights are essentially framed as one big Mega Man game. Each mech they fight is like a new robot master, who once they defeat, they gain their abilities by zipping it together to their own body. And all of this is held up by Shibata's amazing art and fight choreography. His time spent as an assistant on My Hero really shines through in that aspect. ZIPMAN, I really have no idea why it was cancelled. Chapter 1 came swinging out the gate and it only got better as the series went on. I can't even remember the last time Jump had a popular mecha series, and this could have been it. This could have been something special, but as usual, it is what it is. After ZIPMAN, Shibata did go on to work on a prequel to the Dragon Quest Adventure of Dai manga, but from what I was able to gather, he hasn't been serialized since. But along with ZIPMAN, be sure to check out and support any past and future works from Shibata. His work is very much worth your time, and I can't wait to see him back with a new story. And last but not least, we finished this video off with Barrage. Not even gonna let you guess like the last video, this is just straight up one of the earlier works of Kohei Horikoshi, the creator of My Hero Academia. Similarly to Tabata and Hungry Joker from part 1, you can see elements shared between the two series such as art style and character design, but regardless of that, Barrage more than sets itself apart from the My Hero you know today. And to my keen-eyed viewers, you may have noticed that in the comment section of part 1, I let it slip that Barrage was originally going to be a part of that video, but opted to leave out for one reason or another. But here we are. Now that I think about it, I guess that kind of means that Barrage was cancelled twice. Poor Horikoshi, man, but at least My Hero was a huge success. Barrage, published back in 2012, takes place on planet Industria, a planet that was initially ruled by a single royal family, but 50 years ago, after first making contact with alien life, has since been overthrown and reduced to a war-torn shell of its former self. Our protagonist here is Astro, a young kid living in the slums of Industria who works a shitty job for a shitty boss who treats him even shittier. While at work one day, one of the noble aliens happens to be passing through this side of town and tramples Astro's boss for simply being in his path. Astro, being as selfless as he is, comes to the rescue of his boss despite being berated by him while doing so. In this world, resisting any type of demand from nobles could land a commoner in a lot of trouble, which is why the boss can be seen apologizing to him for literally doing nothing. The noble pulls a laser out on Astro, but even in the face of death, he still demands an apology for his boss. The skirmish is eventually broken up by some guards, with the noble tossing some pity money on the ground as he makes his exit. Following the altercation, Astro is actually fired by his boss for putting both his life and business in jeopardy for opposing a noble. Here it is revealed that Astro takes care of children who don't have a family of their own, and he used the money from his job to feed and take care of them. After getting back home to the kids, they thank him for everything he does for them and even offer him some of their food, forcing Astro to hold back his tears. Later that night, we see Astro sitting on the roof with one of the kids, telling them how he wants to build a life of luxury and happiness for them. This conversation is interrupted by a hooded figure as they begin approaching the two. After taking off the hood, we are introduced to a young boy who looks strikingly similar to Astro and reveals himself to be Barrage, the Prince of Industria. Barrage tracked Astro down due to them looking just alike and offered him a proposition to trade places. Barrage is tired of living a pampered and restricted lifestyle and would much rather be left to his own devices to fornicate with the women of Industria. Yes, this is his actual reason for wanting to leave behind his royal status and presumably millions if not billions of dollars. But before Astro can even give him an answer, Barrage places a device known as the Org on Astro's arm, as it's the most notable identifier of Industria's prince. Before they could even finish their conversation, Barrage is unexpectedly shot and falls into a ravine. Immediately after this, royal guards find Astro and, mistaking him for the prince, restrain him and drag him back to the castle. His pleas to them explaining that he isn't actually the prince are dismissed because that's exactly what they expect the prince would say. Back at the palace, we are introduced to the planetary king of Industria and the vice captain of his military, Tiamat. Here we learn that the Org is an ancient treasure passed down from king to king, possessing the power to restore the world. Tiamat speaks to Astro as if he's Barrage, stating that his behavior as the to-be king is embarrassing and he is no more than a burden to the royal family. Astro, having such a strong sense of what it means to be family, checks Tiamat, reminding him that you should never tell a member of your family that you don't need them. Later, we actually get to see the alien noble that harassed Astro earlier here at the palace with his own plot brewing. He begged the king to give him the Org, stating that he would be able to restore Industria to its former glory, but the king denied. When Astro is dragged in, the noble is the only one who realizes that he isn't actually the prince, as he recognizes the clothes he was wearing from earlier. He hatches a plan to accuse the prince of robbing him of the money that he actually threw away, and using this as leverage to gain the Org. To avoid a potential war between the two factions, and after listening to the prince being insulted and called a useless member of the family, Astro jumps out of the window of the palace and attacks the aristocrat with his Org in the form of a lance that manifests itself against people with evil hearts. After defeating the alien and proving his innocence, Astro decides that he must escape as he has to make it back to his family. But before he can leave, he is summoned by the king. Upon meeting the king, Astro confesses to everything, and to his surprise, the king already knew. While he loves his son, he recognizes that Astro is simply more fit to be the king, and asks him to take his place in the fight to restore the world. Astro accepts on the condition that he can move his family into the palace and takes off on his quest with Tiamat. From this point, we're going to jump ahead a bit, venturing into spoiler territory if that's something you want to avoid. I highly recommend you go read this because it's just that good, but I can't not talk about the way the story ends because it gets pretty crazy. So you know how every shonen MC tends to have that mentor that they look up to. Naruto and Kakashi, Luffy and Shanks, and even Deku and All Might. Well, Astro has someone like that too, and his name is Black. No, not that Black, this Black. Astro and Black first met 2 years ago from the current story. Astro had just gathered enough food scraps to feed his family, but it was stolen by a thief. Desperately needing food, Astro rushed towards a random civilian holding a bag of food to in turn steal theirs, and Black stopped him. Having defeated the thief and returned Astro's food. Black tells Astro that he has a rare heart, and that no matter how far he may fall, to never turn to a crooked lifestyle, as Black's philosophy is to never forgive crookedness. Black teaches Astro how to survive and how to make money, and leaves saying to Astro to continue his life pure and uncrooked. Fast forward a couple of chapters, Black and Astro end up meeting again, but this time, Black is the head of a group of villains that have seized control of a small town, killing dozens of people. And it's here that Black reveals the biggest plot twist of the entire series. In the past, Black worked as a soldier for the King of Industria, and when he held the prince after he was born, he could feel his uncrooked heart and wanted to preserve that. And being a master of dark energy, Black created a dummy to take his place and raised the child in the slums, meaning that this entire time, Astro was actually Barrage all along, and the guy we thought was Barrage actually wasn't real. Okay, so I by far enjoyed Barrage the most out of these three series. Here I feel like the writing is the strongest as I'm more invested in the individual goals and motives of each character. Later in the series we get to see backstories for not only Astro but a new character we meet named Tico, and as short as they are, do wonders for the characters individually and for the understanding of the story at large. The planet of Industria feels pretty lived in as well, seeing different regions and kingdoms of people, all with their own struggles as a direct result of the state of the planet. This is a surprising amount of world building packed into these 16 chapters, and I wish I could say the same for My Hero Academia. The art style is obviously very indicative of My Hero, being Horikoshi's earlier work. Maybe not to the same degree as Black Clover and Hungry Joker, but you can definitely see some artistic inspirations for My Hero Academia characters. Astro reminds me of a fusion between Deku and Kirishima, Tico looks like Uraraka and is dressed like Bakugo and Tsuyu, and Aizawa is essentially Tiamat if he went homeless. It's also interesting to see how the designs of the aliens in Barrage went on to become the basis for characters with mutant quirks in My Hero Academia, such as Deadrock and Koda, and Tadpole and Spinner. Action-wise, Seeds were planted for a power system known as Dark Energy, described as an unknown power to have shaped the universe, but it was obviously never fully fleshed out. It would have been really cool to see where this could have gone, especially as the series was cancelled just as Astro was about to learn it. Despite this, the fight scenes were still really fun to read. Horikoshi's creativity shines through with the unique weapons and fighting styles we get to see. And the org with what we saw of it was really cool. No doubt it would have had many different forms for Astro to utilize, combined with the dark energy he would have learned. If Barrage were to have continued, I would have personally liked to see Horikoshi continue to build upon the world building he's established, seeing how all the different cities and kingdoms of Industria are run, and how they were each impacted by the age of the Battlestar. Also, being a self-proclaimed space adventure, there's no way that we wouldn't visit at least one other planet. Character-wise, I would have loved to see Astro go through some sort of identity crisis, divided between the life of poverty and wealth, struggling with finding the meaning of who he is as a person, and how his relationship with Black would change over time. Usually this is where I would say support any future works from the mangaka, but odds are you probably already watched or read My Hero. But if you're one of the 2 people who haven't, check it out. Definitely is one of the series that defines the current generation of manga. So we did it, guys. Part 2. I tried to switch it up and include some series that maybe aren't the most well known, but also aren't completely unrecognizable to the reader, to the average reader. And I hope you guys liked it. The support you guys have been giving to the channel has been absolutely incredible, and I'm honestly just really excited about the future of the channel. And who knows, maybe we'll do a part 3 someday. But in the meantime, if anyone has any ideas for a video or a manga recommendation or anything like that, don't hesitate to let me know in the comments. And like I said before, the main reason this video even really happened was because you guys told me that you wanted it. So I do listen. I definitely listen. So make sure you let me know. Also, if you made it this far, I don't know if anyone's noticed, but your boy's finally done it. That smoke detector, that beep 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 beeping sound in the background, yeah, that's gone. That's been changed. Thank you. I understand how big of a deal this is. A lot of people have been asking and waiting for this moment, but the infrequent and incessant beeping will plague my videos no longer. But seriously, guys, hope everyone has a good rest of your day. Happy holidays and Happy New Year. Peace out.